Welcome to Third to First Youth Baseball Show. We're Tim and Eric, bringing you our perspective, being as we are both coaches and parents. We take a look at and discuss youth baseball from many angles and perspectives. Be sure to find us online at thirdtofirst.com and on Instagram at thirdtofirst_podcast. Make sure to subscribe. What's going on, Tim?
Not much, Eric. Good to see you.
Man, I feel like I was just here with you the other day.
No, it seems like every weekend we're sitting for 6 hours on some baseball field.
Some baseball field. But other than our banter, we also have a special guest today, Chris Helin. Chris is entering his third year as president of Thousand Oaks Little League in, you guessed it, Thousand Oaks, California. After several years of being on the board of directors, he got roped in to be the president. Funny how that works, right, Chris?
Yeah, for sure.
He's been coaching competitive sports since 2001, including water polo, swim, soccer, and, of course, baseball. Like most rec ball coaches, Chris got strong-armed into the position. When his daughter was playing 7U soccer, they asked him to run that team, and he hasn't looked back since. Chris got involved with Little League as a volunteer baseball coach. He's coached T-ball teams all the way up to district-winning all-star teams and everything in between. He's got 4 beautiful children ranging in age from 3 to 13 with his lovely wife. And Chris, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
I guess we could start just talk a little bit about the league, Thousand Oaks Little League. It's got a long history of success, and Conejo Valley and Ventura County in particular has just a lot of really great baseball out there.
It really does. Sorry to step on your toes there. Yeah, Conejo Valley, for baseball is incredible in terms of the talent, which is a blessing and a bad thing as well, which we can kind of talk about. But we see it in soccer too, quite frankly. Not to go there, but with baseball, the talent out of Conejo Valley is notoriously been very good. I mean, there's pros that have come out of there. We constantly see teams that are great teams coming out of the area. The amount of club teams now in the area are what they are, but we've got that. The Little League still thrive. We still have great numbers. We see it in the district. Especially with Conejo Valley and Thousand Oaks Little League, numbers are dwindling and ours don't. So that's a great sign.
Yeah, that is a good sign.
And we're blessed to have those numbers, quite frankly, because league brings players bring funds bring opportunities. It's kind of maybe an administrative way to look at it,
but it brings community too.
Yeah, and 100% community, which we can talk about. That's a big part of what we're doing there now.
Well, that was one of the things that when Spencer had his evals, I think it was his 10-year-old season, the COVID shortened season. No, that was the next year. No, that was that year. Sorry. The atmosphere was one of the things that was really great. Even though you're at the school, it's still like sort of a woodsy feel and just, families, kids.
Well, it's open. It's open as opposed to many of the leagues that are kind of cookie cutter.
Yeah.
It's at Helin, right?
Yeah, we play at Helin, which again is a whole nother world of problems. But we've been there for a long time. We have effectively built those fields. We maintain them 100%. It's a great spot. The community's been really. When I came in as president 2 years ago, the league was great. I mean, the league it's run very well for years. Alan Thompson, the president before me, had done a great job. There was just something missing, a little feeling. That we felt like we needed to kind of put our own stamp on in the community. So when we came in, a lot of the board members left, executive boards. And so that we have an executive board and then we have just a general board of, board. And so general board does a lot of the day-to-day stuff. Obviously, the executive board oversees a lot of the main stuff. You got the umpires there, the snack shack, the fundraising. You got coaching coordinators on that role, in that spot as well. So you've got a lot of the kind of the day-to-day, I would say, like field generals are kind of in the the executive board. And so when we took over, there was kind of, I don't want to say a mass exodus, but a lot of board members.
You can call it that because I know what happened and the gentleman that led the exodus.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So I mean, some when they left, and it was kind of like, well, Alan's been here for 6 years. We've done our time. A lot of them didn't have kids in the program anymore,
right.
And so they saw it as an opportunity, almost like a psychological barrier. Like, okay, well, he's leaving, we're all leaving,
right.
And it was good and bad, right, at the same time, because
fresh ideas are always good, right? But it's that moment of truth of, oh crap,
yeah,
who's gonna step up?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's, and again, we can talk about that, but volunteerism isn't what it used to be, right? Like even in the last 10 years, it's fallen off.
We got the drop-off parents now.
A lot. Yeah. A lot of that. And, a lot of great, of course. I mean, the league doesn't run without great volunteers, and there are many of them. But, on a general whole, that's one of our big problems is now still trying to pull in volunteers. But anyway, so when we took over, the mentality was, look, I don't want to hear we've done this. This is how we've always done it, so we're going to keep doing it that way. Like I just hate that response. I honestly, that comes from kind of a gag reflex with AYSO when I was on I'm still on the board of AYSO, but when I got in there, it was like, God, look at all these opportunities. And again, not to besmirch AYSO's board because they do a really good job with a league triple the size of mine, but it was kind of like, well, we've been doing it this way since 1987, so why are we going to change it?
Right, and slavery they did for a while and that worked. Women didn't vote for a while and that worked. But that's the way we've always done it.
Right. So there was this kind of like mentality that
doesn't make it right.
I literally remember sitting in the first board meeting and I said, okay, all you who are holdovers, if I hear this is the way we've always done it as a reason for why we're doing something, we're not going there. You know what I'm saying? We're not having those conversations. So
right.
So we kind of came in with this mentality of like we need to keep what the league is, which was a very firm based great environment for kids, and we needed to kind of change it just a little bit. And again, the atmosphere is one of the big things we really pushed, and I think we're getting it. Because it's always nice to meet a parent, especially from outside the league, who doesn't know that I'm the president there,
right?
And they say, "Oh, I've heard great things about Thousand Oaks Little League. I've heard great things. I've heard it's a great environment." And that those are the things I look for. Those are those like little thriving moments where I smile and say, "Yeah." Okay,
so how long have you been the president now? 3 years?
Yeah, this will be my third season coming up.
How long has Spencer been at the league, Tim?
4 years.
Right. Because I remember, I'm going to tell you this. When Tim left Sunrise is very organized, right? Very community oriented. And I remember him saying, that first year, man, I didn't even realize I was managing. They kind of told me I was because he was so used to the organization of Sunrise. Then when you came on board and your staff, there was a turning point for me. He said it's so much more organized now, and that's really what all leagues, pony, little league, softball, AYSO, whatever, should strive to be. You want to be a beacon of organization so that people want to come back.
Yeah, and communication goes a long way, right? I mean, there's a lot of assumptions made, especially for returning coaches. That's kind of like, there's assumption they already know. But then you always forget, well, you got tons of families coming in who don't know, and you obviously want to pull in new coaching talent because make new friends but keep the old. So you got to see who's coming in, and not just
eventually kids age out, right?
Right, kids age out. Right. Like, so then you have to constantly be moving this, apparatus around, but everyone's on the same page. The better it is. So we're trying to, exactly. So, thank you, Tim, for saying that.
Well, no, it was like that first year, you do the interview and all that, and then that was it. Yeah. I didn't hear anything. And then I was getting the emails to show up for evals.
Yeah.
So I just showed up.
Well, I remember there were years when we would do evals, we wouldn't even be assigned management yet, right? So you wouldn't even be a manager yet, and they'd be like, well, we're not sure, but come down to spend 8 hours at the fields, eval players, and then you might not get a team.
With a family and kids, you got all sorts of free time.
Right. I could come down and watch everyone else play,
8 hours of time when I may not be a manager.
Right.
That's always good.
Yep.
Talk to us a little bit about I'll call it the club invasion, because we're all part of it, right?
Sure.
Club teams, for those that don't know, club teams, they call them club teams, travel teams. They're all the same thing. It's private, pay-to-play clubs. Usually, most of the time, a higher level caliber of player, at least not the kid that can't.
Well, you'd hope too, right?
You would hope,
and that's kind of part of the problem.
Right.
But
right. Yeah. So and then the egos get involved, right, with the parents saying their kids are better because they play club. Talk to us about how that's affected you and the board and the league as a whole dealing with the invasion of club ball.
And expectations that rec ball is supposed to be like club ball.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's like you might have 3 or 4 players on one team that are, been maybe a higher level talent where they're at. And then you got maybe a 12-year-old who's never played baseball before.
Right. Yep.
And they're all on the same team.
Yep.
And they all pay the same money.
Yep.
To register, to have their kids play. So they all need to be getting time on the field.
Yeah.
So as far as like you guys, like everybody was saying, managing, these expectations of rec ball and, this whole club thing?
Yeah. Well, again, the beautiful thing about Little League is everyone plays, right? So
Right.
if honestly, not even if you can't even financially afford it, right? Like we have
assistance
programs, and we use them. I mean, and they need to be used, right? And I really think there's an imperative that we have baseball offered in Thousand Oaks, right? And
Right.
I've had these conversations now going back to our problems with CVUSD and what they're charging us for our field space, which then puts us out, prices us out of certain things,
Right.
including players that should be there that maybe now can't afford it. So, Little League's phenomenal that way, right? Everyone plays, everyone has the right to play, they should play. That's great, and that should never change. So go back to that point of like, well, you got 4, maybe club players, and then you've got a kid who's never played before. Well, that kid who's never played before has as much right to be there than those 4 studs, right?
Right.
Hands down. And Little League should never ever have to change that. Club obviously doesn't see it that way, which of course is their prerogative as well. They're small businesses basically, right? These guys are all running,
that's what they are.
running their. You got a coach usually, some guy who. Not to sound disparaging, but maybe burned out in minor leagues and now wants to makes a profession as coaching young kids, and so they charge $250 a month or $125 a month, and they fight for field space and they build these little teams. And yeah, I mean, club is great in its place. I can go deeper on that. I think philosophically, I think club baseball is kind of killing baseball in general, and not all clubs, but
I agree. I agree at the younger ages.
yes, yeah,
Yes. Once they get to 12, there's a need maybe to start learning different things and supplementing
right.
what Little League has to offer.
Yeah.
But,
Like our guys, I mean, they have
both of our guys, Dante and
Right.
Spencer.
They're taking notes, right? They have a notebook full of notes on the
Yeah.
plays, the sign. They're learning all the,
Yeah.
every
Pardon me.
And
so they're preparing for high school, essentially.
Right, and that's I think where it starts coming into play,
Yes,
right?
right.
You start burning them out at 8U. I mean, literally, right? If you're going 5 days a week plus weekend tournaments, local, but down in Orange County,
Yeah, that's not local. That's
right.
that's what they
that's
call
I'm saying.
local,
Yeah,
right?
right.
Quote,
So I
unquote,
mean, so
local.
you start getting 8-year-olds who obviously will not grow and develop fully until they're much older, starting to be like, I don't want to play baseball anymore because I'm burned out.
Right.
Yeah.
And that to me is ridiculous. But
It is ridiculous.
Little League in itself dealing with clubs, other than we have a club that uses our facility and drives us nuts because they show up, they do what they ever wanted they do, and they walk out. So they have no
They don't
respect.
drag the field.
Nothing.
They don't. Yeah.
No, they leave trash. Gum stuck to the gum stuck to the fences, and I think it's one club, and I'm not even going to mention them just because I don't want to perpetuate it even further than we've already have.
I
But
think I know who you're talking about, and they are, their
Notorious.
reputation
Yeah.
is declining quickly.
yeah, it's not a good situation. We have another group out of Easton, actually Easton Sports, a guy
Yeah.
named Brian K. BK, who we know really well, and he did a simple thing. He just called me and said, hey, I know I get access to the fields, but would you mind if I'm down on your fields, on these certain days, and we'll clean it, we'll drag it. And I know the guy played at Toll for a long time, or his older son did. And I was like, BK, man, that's all I needed to hear. If you're going to be a good neighbor, come down and use them. But I think there's this general feel of clubs where it's like, well, we're paying for the space. You guys, it's your problem, not our problem. And, that obviously rubs us the wrong way at the board, on the board,
Oh,
at
yeah.
Toll and all that. So, yeah, so club is tough. I think, I think Little League's become a little bit of like the minor leagues in some sense to parents, where
Right.
they learn how to play in T-ball, they develop in coach pitch, they start playing Acorn One, and if kids start getting that little sense of like, oh, I can actually play, I think parents sometimes think, well, I need to get them into something better than Little League. And then so what happens is a lot of times we'll develop these kids in the basics and start getting them in, playing, and then suddenly it's like, well, my little Johnny's too good for Little League, and they pull him.
Right.
And so there's a lot. I'm sure you guys see that at
That's
Sunrise. and-
pervasive.
yeah.
I think in all pony and little leagues.
Yeah.
And it's starting to really creep in big time into the softball leagues too.
Yeah. And again, not to go back
Yeah.
to soccer, but soccer,
Yeah,
we see it in
same
soccer
thing.
all
Yeah,
the time.
same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like, one of the things I would think about is like, say you have, like in terms of enrollment, you have, maybe 8 to 10 T-ball teams.
Yeah.
And then by the time that group of kids are 12, how many teams, You know, are you losing half those teams, half those kids?
We lose a lot, and that's the honest truth. And, you know, it's actually been
Is that
better.
at the 12-year-old?
Yeah, it
mark?
just seems to, you know, it's like you start off with a pyramid, basically, right?
Yeah.
You start with numbers, ideally, and it kind of just slowly trickles out. And that's some of that's clubs, some of that's just kids who want to go play other sports, and they don't, you know. The one that always gets me is when, you know, the T-ball mom says, we're not coming back because my kid's a daisy picker. And it's like, well, every pro was a daisy picker at some point. You know, so you gotta kind of fight through that a little bit. But, you know, so yeah, I mean, we there is just a natural, you know, slimming of the program as they get older.
Yeah, I see, you know, Chris, in my days, about a decade now, right, along with Tim, I see the pyramid trim a little bit every year, right?
Yeah.
But then that 12-year-old year is like a cliff.
Yeah.
Right.
Or you know, kids just opting out because now it's time to get serious in Little League.
Right.
You know,
that too, right.
Yep.
I love the fact that Thousand Oaks offers the juniors,
Yeah.
you know, they get to play in a, you know, 60-90.
Yeah.
60, and,
Yeah.
you know, it's very competitive.
Yeah.
And it's great baseball. And, you know, I wouldn't pull Spencer out. Spencer's my kid. I wouldn't pull him out of Little League until it's dry, you know?
Well, you know, my son aged out at Sunrise and then went over to West Hills baseball, which we love. But we would have stayed in Little League if they had that program at Sunrise. The problem with Sunrise, there's just not enough fields, not big enough fields. You know, once you get to 200 feet, you can't have 14-year-olds on that field. It's just not going to work. You're going to hit the ball into the street.
And we have the same problem at Thousand Oaks Little League. We have field space for majors, and then after that they have to go off-site, right, to a park, or, you know, there's other obviously great baseball facilities in the area, so they move there. But yeah, it's funny you say that because, you know, there was a big conversation about bringing in the intermediate division to kind of bridge that gap.
For the folks that don't know the intermediate division,
Sure, yeah. So intermediate would be 13s.
Right.
So after 12s at let's say Helin or at our home fields, then we would you'd technically go to 13U, which would be intermediate,
right?
Which is a 50-70, so 50 mound, 70 base. So it kind of bridges the gap from what you go when you go 12U or the major league level up to juniors, which is a big jump, right? I mean, Tim,
those early games was just like, you know, they hit a smash to the shortstop, which would be into the outfield at the season before. Yeah. And then it's that long run.
And for those of you folks that have your kids in pony, that would be the Bronco level for pony. Yeah. Pony ball. That same thing, right. Same distances.
I get all those horses mixed up, but Bronco.
Actually, it's Colt.
Is it Colt?
It's Colt.
Colt. Yeah, Colt is the 60-90.
No, I'm sorry. I was thinking back to the intermediate.
Yeah.
Intermediate's,
I'm sorry.
Intermediate's Bronco, and then pony, and then Colt is the juniors, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm right on. Well, we'll double check our facts on that.
And then so the intermediate was funny because we were really proposing, and the district was proposing, why don't we do more 50-70s to keep the 12s engaged into another year, so that they'll jump to juniors. But then we're thinking is, unfortunately, that will kill the juniors. You know, does that make sense? Because then we'll lose all the 13s. So now it's only be 14s playing. You might have one team as opposed to three, and so there's kind of like a, you know, what's the give take there? And I think we're still kind of figuring it out.
It makes the 14 stronger when they already played when they were 13.
It does, yeah.
I mean, I know this year has like a lot of really good 14s.
Yeah.
You know, you lost quite a few after their 12-year-old season, but the really competitive baseball because they've already had that year to learn to make that throw from third all the way across the diamond.
Yeah, that's a big throw. Going from 12.
That's a huge difference.
It's a huge difference. Yeah, we have, so Thousand Oaks Little League, we have actually technically a club team. We call them Little League Club. So it's not pay to play by any means. Usually the fees are, you know, just to pay for field space and uniforms or whatever.
Right.
And we try to do that to keep our all-star teams together. So coming out even at 7U, the idea is to start a Bulldogs team, which we do this year for a 7U team. And so the idea is just keep those kids together and whoever else wants to come out, quite frankly. Bulldogs is open to whoever is age eligible at Thousand Oaks Little League. And come on down, keep playing. It's not 4 days a week. It's usually like one practice a week.
At Sunrise, we took the Bulldogs, their whole program, and we mimicked it.
Okay, yeah.
And we now have the Heat.
Yeah.
The Woodland Hills Heat, which is the same thing, right?
Yeah.
You're playing at Sunrise. You're 8 years old.
Yep.
Or 9 years old, because we'll do 8 and 9U. We don't go as young as 7U. But but it's really helped the kids develop, and as such, it's made the league as a whole better.
Right.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, it's that whole idea of what do they call that? The social multiplier, right?
Yes.
Where the idea is if you get the kids wanting to do it and thriving and developing and getting better, then they do it internally, right? They kind of spin themselves up.
Right.
And so and then the kids who aren't doing it see it and say, oh, I got to kind of, and it kind of perpetuates itself a little bit. And not even for the sake of, it really isn't the sake of development, right? I mean, as you've seen, we're not trying to go win national championships at the Bulldogs at 8U. I mean, it's just to keep the kids playing, to keep them together, to keep keep them fresh, keep them moving along. So,
and you're playing teams from from all around, the region. And the talent, I mean, you're leaving the bubble.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Definitely. And then again, you go play those, like the Rincons, right? You play those teams that will kick your butt all over the place.
That's okay, though.
Right. It's completely fine. And then you'll get the teams that you'll kick the crap out of too. So you kind of like, you can't have too much mentality of like, we're going to go do this. Well, it's like, yeah, but remember, you're going once a week. You're playing double headers every other weekend.
Right.
Like it's all perspective. So I really like my little guy Teddy plays with the 9U Bulldogs, and my son, who's now 11.
Yeah, my little guy plays with the 9U Heat at Woodland Hills too.
Yeah. So and it's a great little program. The coaches are great. It's kind of it is under the guise of like, let's develop, let's learn positions, let's play together, let's get reps. My older son Billy, who was playing with the 11U Bulldogs, is kind of now. Unfortunately, he's in that age where he's kind of like, he's not sure if he's into baseball anymore.
It's okay.
Which is a bummer because he's an all-star, he's a good player, but he's kind of like, you know what, Dad, I'm not really into it as much anymore. And it's like, all right, I'm not going to force you.
You know what, though, I'll tell you what, I saw a couple kids, and this happens, right? So parents out there, don't lose hope. Although you should let your son or daughter do whatever they want, sometimes they come back.
Yeah.
They take a year off. We saw Noel's kid, Drew, did that, a friend of ours that we've known for years. He took a year off, and now he's back playing. It's just sometimes they need a break.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they're looking at other stuff, and didn't quite.
Believe it or not, there's more to life than just that particular sport you're playing.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. Not a lot of people feel that way about a lot of different sports.
So talk to us on that note.
Sure.
A hot topic in all leagues is the coach, dad or mom that's not a registered coach, but they're in the stands, coaching from the stands. How do you
Get your elbow up.
Get your elbow up.
Yeah.
Throw strikes. How do you help your throw strikes? Yeah, they're not trying to throw strikes, right?
Yeah.
Catch the ball, right? They're not trying to catch the ball. Yeah. How do you coach your managers and coaches at large on how to deal with these folks? Because obviously we're not going to kick them out of the league,
right?
Except for one.
It's been more than one, but yeah, Tim.
Extreme cases, yes. But what advice would you give to brand new managers on dealing with these folks? Because it can be very challenging, and it can be very difficult for that particular kid too, because he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, right?
Yeah, you get the kid who's looking into the out or off into the stands while the game's going on, and that's never a good idea, right? Because dad's yelling or mom's yelling, like, get your butt down or whatever it is, or hips or whatever, Yeah.
Even if they're not yelling, they're like, they know it's something's coming.
Yeah.
Either in the car or something, on the way home.
Yeah. I think with our general dealing with managers, and we're really lucky to have some really good old managers who've been doing it a long time, who have that just general field sense. Obviously a lot of new managers come in as well. Brian Hoover, who's our head of coaching coordinators, is great. And we try not to micromanage, right, as a league, because it's very easy to be like, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do this, you got to do that. So we let our coaches feel it out, obviously, our managers, and they have to get their own sense. We obviously will step back in and help, and we're always at the field. So when I see it, I'll kind of come over and say, hey, coach, like that parent down there, like you got to keep an eye on them and maybe have a conversation with them. And it kind of goes back to the basic elements, right? Like the manager has to have the structure. There's got to be order. The kids obviously thrive under structure, but the parents have to then also be under that structure as well. So we got a manager, we got two coaches. They're the ones making the decisions. We can't have 11 coaches on the sideline because it falls apart super fast. Not only does it undermine what the manager's trying to do and the coaches are trying to do to develop a core team and players at the same time, but you lose sight of, if little Johnny's running to dad every time, and I've seen it bad. I mean, I've seen in All-Stars where a dad was given signs from the seats to the kid, superseding the signs that were given from the co-manager, and it was like, I mean, obviously it didn't last very long, and the kid ended up actually not staying on the team.
Well, it's
it
crazy.
happens. Yeah.
I had let's say in the last 3 seasons, that way no one knows who I'm talking about. I had a kid, I gave him a take sign, right? He's got 3-0. We need 1 run to win the playoff game. Bases loaded.
Yeah.
Bottom of the 6th inning. He's got 2 strikes on him. It's a full count.
Okay.
3-2. And I had told him to take.
Yeah.
And his dad, after the game, he didn't take, and he struck out, and we went 2 extra innings and lost the game, and that would have been it, right?
Yeah.
And I asked him, I said, hey, I'm just curious, so-and-so, without saying names.
Yeah.
Why didn't you take? He goes, my dad told me to ignore that sign.
Yeah. See, yeah.
And I wasn't mad at the kid at all.
Yeah.
And I said, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I told the dad, I said, I don't care that we lost the game.
Yeah.
I don't. I wouldn't have cared if he struck out and he missed my sign, but you superseding me to the kid in front of all those parents and kids is really bad for the league.
Yeah.
And he goes, no, I don't think so. I played in the minors, blah, blah, blah. And I said, what does that have to do with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Dealing with these personalities, it can be pretty difficult.
It can. It's not, and it's bad for the kid. It puts the kid in a bad position, right? I mean, what life lesson is that? When basically, not to make this sound super structured, but his superior tells him to do something.
Everybody's got a boss,
right? And then he doesn't agree. The dad doesn't agree, so he doesn't follow through with it. I mean, it just I don't know. I mean, again,
I always tell the kids this. Baseball is a metaphor for life, right? Everybody's got a position on the field. Everybody reports to somebody. Everybody backs somebody up.
Yep.
Right? And even if you own your own business later in life, your customers are your bosses. You report to somebody.
Yeah.
I don't care what you do. But you're right. So we're teaching them the wrong things when they let that go on.
Plus it takes the pull off the team and puts it back on the individual, which I'm, hyper aware of. And it really bugs me, and it seems to be more, and maybe I'm just getting older and like the old man yelling at the rain. But the whole like me situation, when it John Wooden used to say like me not we. I mean, it's not me, it's we. And you see these kids being like, well, I just want to hit dingers. It's like, yeah, but maybe we need you to bunt, or maybe we need you to take have the take sign. It's like the what's good for the team may not be what's good for you at this moment, but you got to appreciate that the team comes first. It's not the player. So there's a lot of that in there too. And
you mentioned John Wooden. He's from a distance your mentor, is he not?
Yeah, I love John Wooden. My dad is a huge UCLA basketball coach. I mean, a fan, excuse me. And obviously John Wooden was the coach there for years. I mean, the guy won 10 national championships. I mean, in like 8, in 11 years or something. I mean, something insane. His numbers were insane, but just the general mentality of Wooden is incredible. I mean, how good of a coach he was, and it's the emphasis goes back again. It's like team first, like start with the basics. We build. It's not like now you know how to throw a ball, so let's go become an ace pitcher.
Yeah, and I think
there's
that,
like building blocks. And
Wooden, he's been a mentor for so many of us throughout all sports.
Yeah,
whether you even realize it or not, it's crept in.
Yes,
it has.
It is. I have my favorite quote from Wooden. I'm sure you guys have one too. Is and I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "Do or don't. There is no trying."
Yeah,
right?
It's like Yoda.
Yeah, I know.
It is.
Or don't.
It is.
There is no trying.
No, it is. Yeah.
Go do it.
Yeah.
And I have a quote I always say to especially the young kids. I always say, look, don't ever let somebody tell you what you can't do. Show them what you can do.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my parents love that because they tell them anywhere in life, you want to play shortstop, you say, hey, can I get in line and try?
Yeah.
Don't tell them you want to play shortstop. Just go give it a try and show them what you could do.
Yeah.
These kids.
Yeah, let your performance speak. And then the effort, of course, right? Like effort and attitude.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've said that on the field, right? Where you get a kid come out and be like, well, the umpire's this and the umpire's that, or the field, the ball hopped. And I have to remind him, like, look, it's attitude and effort. Let's control what you can control, right? And disregard everything else because it takes you out of controlling what you can control. So if you're worried about the umpire, you're no longer worried about your best effort. And so, yeah, I mean, the John Wooden stuff for me is huge.
Gold.
Yeah, it's gold, and it's like a reference book. I mean, you can go back to it, and there's always a message depending on where you are in your life, and it's incredible stuff.
All those guys that played for him too, are like really great individuals.
Yeah.
Because he taught them how to be grown men.
Yeah.
On the way through, their 4 years at UCLA.
Yeah, he had a great quote where somebody came up and asked him, some booster, and said, how do you feel about the team this year? And he said, I won't know for 20 years. Because he was building individuals. He was putting them on this path to success that wasn't necessarily defined by basketball or, whatever they were doing at that moment. It was kind of this overall,
He's a life teacher.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like Bill Walton gives credit to his entire life to John.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah.
The list goes
on and on and on. Yeah.
And even guys that didn't play for him, but look at him as a mentor. So, it's I think one of the most powerful things for guys like us, right? You figure you're a dad, you're coaching, is you'll run in, and we've all had this, right? You'll run into a kid in the store that's 17, 18, and they'll say, hey, coach.
Yeah.
And what is that? For me, anyway, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
Yeah.
They'll come and give you a hug.
I totally agree. That the best feeling is when, even the older kids, right? The juniors who are kind of aging out, again, I've only been president this is my third year, but I've been in the league for a while.
Right.
And so you kind of get this like just camaraderie and this general knowledge, and you see these kids at Starbucks or something. They're like, oh, hey, Mr. Helin, and you're like, hey, dude, how you been? You looking good?
Great.
Like how's life? Like, are you doing all right? Like, So I love that. I mean, that's the kids are obviously why we're here doing all this. So
to me, I tell the parents when I'm at this point I'm managing, right? So I always tell the parents, hey, look, we need your help to volunteer, but if you don't volunteer, you might think, okay, I'm cheating the team, I'm cheating the kids. No, you're cheating yourself out of a great feeling, that feeling of philanthropy and giving back to your community, and you're teaching your kids how to be that way too for their future.
Right. Yeah, you're setting the tone.
Goes right into our next
sure. Yeah.
So,
you got to love when that happens, right, guys?
So, how many kids do you have in the league right now?
I have two in the league currently. Yeah, I've got one will be a 12U technically, and one's going to be a 9U. Yeah.
So, how's your experience, like being a volunteer, board of directors, and now the president, coach, manager? How is your experience, sort of paralleled their experience?
How do you
That's a good question.
How do you balance like their experience with all your responsibilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think on some level my boys lose out with me doing this because I'm not necessarily there then every moment to help with a swing and I don't really like doing anyway. I mean, I love the coaching aspect of it, but there's a natural growth to this. But maybe I'm not necessarily being able to give the one-on-one that I could at certain times with my boys. But I think they understand that, right? And I think there's a kind of a, not to sound again grandiose, but there's kind of a greater good here. So my kind of thing is like, if we can get everybody on the same page, then not only do my kids benefit, but everyone else's kids benefit as well. So it's almost like resources, right? Like I love coaching. I absolutely love to coach, and I love being involved. At a certain point, and I still do. I mean, you know, it's like I'll assistant coach with teams, I can't take the reins, and technically I can as the president, but I don't also like those optics. We've had a tendency to have some good teams the last several years, and so I don't like the optics of like, well, Helin's the president, Helin's team's good, like.
What happened
that's
in the
weird.
draft.
And we actually had a team a couple years ago in minors, my older son's team. Minors, as you know, is weird because there's a jump, right? So you have the returning minors players at the draft, and then you have all these kids who are coming up.
They're taking the jump,
right, from what we call Acorn 2. Right. So you get this jump of new kids and old kids. Now those managers that come with those new kids only really know those new kids,
right?
And so there was a draft 2 years ago. We were the A's. And Jordan Sweeney was managing the team, and I, as a president, I was on the we do the draft. As Little League has that draft rules that are like very, very strict, right? You have your player registrar sitting there, make sure there's no shenanigans, make sure it's all clear in the up and up. And so as president, I sit in on those calls with the coaching coordinator, the vice president, and our player registrar, or live. And so Jordan, it was this year, that particular year, that draft happened to be over Zoom. So we have the draft board up on the shared screen, and we're pulling names. And the coach I was coaching with, Jordan, was doing the draft, and it was like, your kids get kind of slated out. So we knew that Billy, my son Billy, and his son Ollie were going to probably be 1-2. So then you have to wait, if the draft comes around, it's like a snake draft. Yeah, snake draft. So we didn't have a pick to the third, So we're sitting there waiting, and suddenly we get a name that we've all known from the year before who was an all-star, and we're like, that just, again, I can't say anything. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting there watching this draft go on, and these younger coaches coming up were pulling the names they knew of good players, but they're, drafting through, and I'm watching Jordan just pick. I think
the bigger, stronger
so
kids.
I think out of that year we had 12 players on our team. I think we had 9 all-stars between 2 age groups, and I think we ended up going 16-2 on the season. And because again, Jordan did a great job doing the draft. I had no say in it, and of course, 4 games into the season, I hear from a mom be like, "Well, it's just unfair because you control the draft." And I'm like, I don't control any part of the draft. I sit there and just make sure that they aren't yelling at each other, make sure they're not trying.
Feel like it should be the public draft, like when when they have LeBron and Kevin Durant drafting for the All-Star teams.
Yeah,
everybody knows it's on the up and up.
Yeah, but I mean, again, so we do it obviously always on the up and up, just so it's full clarity.
Course,
it's not just like me sitting there, but yeah, it's like that's what we hear. It's like, oh well, of course, because it's you and Jordan, you guys just do the draft the way you want to do it.
That were in the draft.
Right, and I said that, and I just, because again, not to go back to Wooden, but Wooden always says, as a leader, you got a target on your back. Like it's inevitable. And so, I try not to take personal offense to it because I want to be like, are you effing kidding me? Like, are you kidding? Like, really? Like, that's what. So you have to take a step back, almost laugh it off, and be like, well, look, everyone else was in the room. Yeah. The guy who had the first round pick took a kid that he liked, which was great, but was he the best kid on the board? I mean, again, now we're getting into like a different conversation, but it's like, well, they want to build a team, and we had talent that was sitting around, and so we got picks, and anyway, that goes here or there, but
it's draft. This goes for all the coaches and managers that are in a draft. You have to come with a pre-draft strategy, and have your second, third, and fourth option for every pick.
Yeah,
and if you don't, you're kidding yourself thinking you're going to get a team that you want.
Yep.
Because it's also
the families that you want.
The families that you want.
Yeah, that's a big part of the draft too.
Part of the draft,
yeah,
right?
100%.
Yeah. You got to make sure that those families mesh and that they're going to help you with the volunteerism as well.
Yeah. It's that old kind of, what's the Marine? The Marine is like, we recruit for attitude and we'll train the skills.
Right.
It's almost like that a little bit in baseball too, right? It's like you kind of want the attitude. You don't want, kind of those families that kind of submarine the whole team. That's a big no-no. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Like the first time, first team that we coached together, the draft was very similar.
Yeah.
And I didn't hear this, but after the championship game, we had his kid, we had another kid, and Spencer.
Yeah.
Each throw.
Yeah.
And they hadn't all thrown together all season because you're getting other kids. But just mowed them down. And the other manager was like, "Oh, if you're going to win like that."
Yeah.
So
that's a lot of sour grapes, right?
Right. He had every opportunity to draft my son. He obviously could draft Spencer and the other kid. He just didn't.
Yeah. There was that other kid.
He drafted the younger kids, kind of like what you were talking about.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened because you talking about the snake, right? And came back around, and there was one kid sitting there, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
He's available, and it's like, "Yeah, I'll take him." And then another manager in the room, like, "Oh my god!" He's like, "I knew he was going to take. You get that pick every year." know, and
it's like you had your option. Yeah.
But all throughout all that drama, we still encourage you guys that are listening out there, get involved. Whether it's field maintenance, snack shack, being a team parent, an assistant coach. There's something out there for you to do to help
100%.
Teach your kids philanthropy.
And nothing is overwhelming. If you have, a good team of families that are volunteering, nobody's going to be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know, like, my first year of managing at Sunrise was like, I had no, I just went to evals and signed Spencer up, and they go, "Would you be interested in managing?"
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I didn't think of it again.
Yeah.
I got a call the next day.
Yeah.
And I was overwhelmed, because they're like, yeah, okay, you got a team. I'm like, I didn't think I was going to get a team. So turned out fine.
Yeah.
So you be a team parent, do the fields, it's all fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing, and you get help like from Chris, from the board if you need something.
Right. Yeah. Most little leagues are really well run. right? Like even when they're not, they're still well run in terms of you get support. If you need help, you get it. Dealing with bad parents, that's the board's job, right? That's not necessarily the coach's job. It's, nothing is, I've never had a job at at Little League, including being president, where I was like, oh God, like what did I get myself into? So,
Yeah, and after the first year or two anyway, all the other parents, all the other volunteers, and that's where that community starts, and the kids get lifelong friends that they met.
Oh yeah.
In T-ball.
Yeah. When we finish up here, we're going to watch my nephew play because my older son and my younger son have friends that are going to be at the field. Yeah. We're just going to be there. We'll probably eat dinner there.
So being volunteer, like what we were talking about, you're going through this whole thing with your kids. Yeah. I'm up until I think this last year, I'd managed, I think, 8 out of 9 teams or something like that, 7 out of Spencer's team. And it is a weird thing because, he's calling you coach on the field. Yeah. And it's also, the mound visits. Yep. Can get a little like, go to your room,
Tim knows this about me. I always had this rule. You don't visit your own kid on the mound. I'd send another coach. Yeah. Because I don't care what you say, you're dad. Yeah. And you send another coach, that's coach. Yep. Even if he calls you coach, you're still dad, right? Yep. So I would never send myself out there. I would do it if it was I was bringing the infield and say, hey guys, calm down. Yeah. If it wasn't specific to the pitcher, if it was my son. Yeah. But typically I'd send another coach out. It just works better that way.
It does, yeah. There's a hard line with kids don't know if they're getting dad or coach, right? And so there's and then there's the thing on the coach too, where, oh my God, everyone's looking at my son, and that reflects poorly on me, right? Which isn't, of course, the case. But a lot of coaches have that mentality of like, well, that my son represents me, and if they're failing, I'm failing, which again is ridiculous. But there's a lot of that, like that prevalent.
Yeah, there is
in youth sports and baseball, and so the sports psychology that you could do on just a basic little league team is insane. But
I had a kid on my all-star team this last year, and he would strike out and cry, and he didn't perform like he normally would. And it wasn't because the pitching was better. It was all, he was in his own head. And they actually sent him to a sports psychologist and it helped him. And the reason I bring that up is don't be afraid to have your kid get some help, because if they're having anxiety in baseball, they're probably having anxiety in other parts of their life as well. Yeah. Have them see somebody, it doesn't hurt.
We know a lot about baseball anxiety in my household, so that's no, it's a real thing. I mean, it's not illogical, right? But no one ever said anxiety was, So, but it also is immobiles, it's immobilizing, and it's
totally immobilizing.
Yeah, and it's like you got to take steps to do, to conquer it and defeat it. And
probably baseball and softball more than any other sport, right? Yeah. If you're batting 300 or you are failing 70% of the time, right, you're a stud. Yeah. Right. Try shooting 30% from the floor and staying on the Lakers. Right. Right. Yeah. Or throwing completing 30% of your passes as an NFL quarterback. You're given your walking papers. So you're taught that this is the way it is.
Well, yeah, in baseball too, it's like every single position you're kind of is its own island.
That's true.
Because there's a ball hit to left field.
Yeah, there's nowhere to hide.
Everybody's looking at the left fielder. Yeah. And just, a pass ball. It's like, oh my God. It's like. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a general mentality, I think, too, of like what is failure, right? And baseball is huge. I mean, again, like you just said, baseball is a game of failure. 100%. I mean, it is a game of failure. I mean, Ted Williams has the all-time or the season record for batting average, and it's like 400. Right. So that means you get four balls out of every 10. Right. I mean, like you said, like I can't do that in my job. You know what I mean?
You have to go to a job.
There's no way. But so the mentality of failure then needs to be addressed, right? Like, what is failure? Is failure your defining moment, or is it a growth moment? Is it just, no, I got to work harder. I gotta get my butt down on the next ground ball, right? It's not like, okay, now I suck, which I think is this over kind of arching prevalent feeling, right? Of a lot of these, and it comes from a lot of the parents, like, well, oh, you struck out. It's like, so I get 3 more bats next game. I can keep working through it. So, we try to instill that a lot, and of course we don't beat it on the parents' noses,
Right.
like you're thinking about this wrong. But, that's part of our jobs too, is to remind parents, like, look, this is a game of development. Like, they're developing. They will strike out, and they'll strike out again, and they'll strike out again. But as long as they're learning from what they're doing and learning their mistakes and knowing that they can achieve or grow beyond where they are currently, that's all that really matters. And that goes back to the life part of it.
Right.
Because that shit is basic life.
Basic.
Pardon the...
we don't mind.
Okay,
we
good.
don't
I
mind,
can bleep me out on that one. Sorry about that. Sorry about that.
We might add some more in later.
Get the 6-second delay.
That's the Patreon version right there. It's like exclusive content.
My apologies. Hopefully,
Helin.
the 6-second delay there. Hopefully, beep.
And as Chris let that S bomb slip, it doesn't bother us. But just so you guys know, guys and gals that coach baseball, they're regular guys.
Yeah.
Look, I never played baseball, okay, but Tim got me involved and said, "Hey, I think you could probably coach these kids."
Yeah.
And I'm an insurance agent. I've been an insurance agent for 22 years, right? I mean, what, Tim? You work in the IT sector, right?
Yeah,
Outside
I do graphic design.
graphic design.
Yeah.
And what do you do outside here?
I'm in finance. Is the easy way to put it.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 guys from totally different
Right.
areas. I mean, you played ball as a kid. I didn't.
I did. I loved
Okay,
it. Yeah.
So there's not a cookie cutter way. You don't have to have played in the minor leagues or coached previously to get involved, but get involved.
Yeah.
Okay, get involved doing something. It is very rewarding, as Chris and Tim and I can attest to.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely rewarding. And again, it's not, if you go out and you're not good at it, well, then grow at it, right? I mean, I think a lot of the coaches I'm sure you gentlemen are the same way. It's like, I take pride in learning how to be a better coach.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you learn, and it's not just necessarily baseball drills, but again, it's a little bit of that sports psychology, a little bit of, John Wooden pulled in, a lot of little of this, and you just start kind of shaping your own path in how you do
and
it, right?
develop a tree of mentors.
Yeah. Oh, that's key. Yeah.
So I coached with Tim first, but then he went to Thousand Oaks, and I thought, oh God, what am I going to do? I did, and so him and I talked about it, and I said, well, the hell with it, I'll take a team.
Yeah.
But I swear, 3 times a week I'm on the phone with him. Hey, how do I do this? How do I do that? Develop a tree of mentors that can help you,
Yeah.
guide you. Certainly, how Tim has for me.
Yeah, yeah, and even when I took over as the president, Alan Thompson, who was the president before me, has still been nothing but absolutely helpful. I'll call him up and be like, Alan, I got a question for you. Like, what about this? And so he's been helpful. But I mean, that's true in every walk of life, right? Especially if you're coaching.
Especially.
Yeah, ask questions, learn, develop, right? Like, push it. You don't have all the answers. No one wants you to have all, or assumes you have all the answers. Especially the younger you are. Obviously, as you get older, you kind of start solidifying more of that knowledge and more of that baseball. But when you're younger, man, just ask questions. Like, figure out what you don't know.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is correct. That's right.
So we're probably eating up a lot of time here, which is good. Let me tell you, because part of our podcast is, we're just 3 guys talking about baseball.
Yeah, this is fun. Right. This is fun. I've never done this before. This is like
every guest we bring on says that same thing, and they're always like,
You're number 2.
Yeah, he's number 2, right? Of the thousands of
every guest.
But the one thing, people are drawn to it. They want to come and talk baseball.
Yeah.
And we'll have you on again, Chris. We'll
please.
have Chris's full bio on our website. Sure. If you want to ask Chris questions, you could reach out to him at Thousand Oaks Little League.
Yeah,
easy to find.
My email is up on the website. Just look for my name. Yeah, and my contact.
And if you live in the Conejo Valley area and your kid wants to play baseball,
especially T-ball. I mean, everybody's welcome, obviously, but we're T-ball coach pitch are the ones that we always have a hard time finding. Yeah. They're so little, and even though we know all the schools they go to, we can never get a hold of them. So,
right.
So you got 4 or 5, 6-year-olds want to come play baseball. Thousand Oaks Little League is, and honestly, and if you're not in our borders, CVLL is great too. So.
Yeah, there.
Stacy Hibbard's the president over there. He's a great guy.
Lots of baseball out there.
Yeah,
lots of baseball.
Yeah. So just quickly.
Sure.
What's been the most rewarding part of being the president? Not the manager, not a former board, but just running the whole thing. What you see, and it's kind of like your little empire or whatever. When you see the successes of the league and families just really enjoying their time there.
Yeah, we love seeing the families that hang out after their games are done or before their games start. I lovingly call this there's a group of boys that is now ever expanding, and I jokingly call it our litmus test, right? It's like our environment tester.
Right.
And we have these kids who hang out and they play and they run around and they're playing wiffle ball and they're
going
hanging
to the
in the
snack shack,
shack.
in the Gatorade. Yeah.
Right.
Throwing
Those
the
are the kids.
football around too.
Yeah, football, whatever it is. I call them the toll bums, right? Because they hang out at Toll all day, and it's phenomenal. I mean, that to me is one of the most rewarding parts. Is like, okay, we've created this environment that again was that we're standing on the shoulders of giants from. So it's not like we built this thing from the ground up, but the little touches that we've added and included into this environment now, where you see these kids who are comfortable playing with their friends, being down at the fields, playing again free from when they're actually on the field playing ball, and it's great to see. It really is. I love competitive baseball is great, and everyone wants competitive baseball, but that's not the end of the story, right?
No, it's just a small part of it.
Right. It's a very, very small part of it. Competitive baseball is phenomenal. And of course, we've got this proud history at Toll, but it's just a teeny smidgen of what we do down there. And, you always want those great teams, but, that doesn't define us. So there's a little these small things, right? Like seeing just the families that are happy, teams that are getting along. You got the kids that are growing, kids who maybe didn't want to play, and you talk to mom and dad, and they're like, well, the kid doesn't really want to play. And then you see them 3 weeks in, and they're having a great time, and they love it. And it's like, that's the stuff that I really enjoy being down there.
A friend of ours, Chad Boyd, you're gonna be on the show soon, Chad, so don't get any ideas of running. But he grew up here in the West San Fernando Valley, played at West Hills, played out at El Camino, got drafted by the Oakland Athletics, played professionally for 3 or 4 years. And what he always tells people is, my fondest memories of baseball were 12 and under.
Yeah.
Playing buns up on the wall,
Yeah.
throwing the football around the field, and just being there all day, watching my friends play.
Yeah, that's where you meet your friends. I think Ashatel pointed that out, was that in club ball you show up and you leave.
Yeah.
Right.
The Little League or Pony League as well is you're meeting your friends at T-ball and coming all the way up.
Famous umpire Danny Klein, we're gonna have you on too, buddy. He's got the best punch out you've ever heard. It's the ha. And the kids love him, right? In fact, one day I had all the kids imitate him for him, and he loved it. But anyway, he said something to me, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, and he's watched, Dante and Jeremy, my 2 guys, grow up, and he says, what it is when you come to a Pony or Little League, it's an experience. It's an all-day experience. It's not a game. It's a day.
Yeah. And you're playing with kids you go to school with, and you can't beat it.
No, you really can't. I had a parent last year come up to me whose kid also plays club, and they said, this is the stuff you can't replicate.
No, you can't.
And I said, no, exactly right. Remember, and Tim, Friday Night Lights. We do Friday Night Lights
it's a blast.
2 or 3 times a year. We bring lights in, at a very big expense, quite frankly, but we play under the lights for 3 Friday nights, and it's phenomenal. I mean, it is great. And one of the dads, this dad came up to me and said, this is something you cannot. This is Little League. Like, you can't replicate this anywhere. And it's like, that's the environment.
And the kids love it. The first time they step out there under the lights,
it's cool.
It's like, they're getting introduced, and you got the I think it was the coach pitch.
Yeah, the little team up.
So you team up with, you warm up with these little kids, and they get introduced with these kids. We had one of the kids as our a bat boy.
Yep.
Tiny, and he took it seriously. Man. He loved it.
Little ones usually do.
On top of it. And it's like the home run derby at Sunrise. All the younger kids. They do it, so it's like Friday Night Lights, but they just do the home run derby, and all the little kids are just bragging about whose ball they caught. Yeah, if say player X hits the home run, and he's like really well known as a good 12-year-old. The 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds is like, I got his ball.
Yeah, it's crazy. So my older boy won the home run derby in his 12-year-old year when he was aging out, and the next. That was a Friday night, right? And it's Saturday, he had a game. Yeah. And there were kids waiting, and he hit 2 home runs the next game, right?
That helps.
They got the balls, and they asked him to sign the ball. Yeah. Like his Mike Trout out there, Yeah. So the atmosphere is amazing.
Yeah, it is. If you do it right, it's exactly what you guys are talking about. The little ones see the big ones. Right. And they're like, holy cow, like, look at these guys. They look huge to them, right? I mean, you're talking to a 12 to a 7-year-old, right? Right. I mean, a huge difference. And I remember, I'm sure, Tim, you did the same thing. I remember sitting over on our Acorn 1 field, which is like the 7s, 8s. I remember with Billy's team one year and just looking over at the 12s and just being like, holy
Those
shoot.
kids are big.
They're big.
Well, you could say shit. It's
But, you look over and you're like,
exclusive
wow.
content, please visit our page.
But it's like, that's a lifetime away. And now my son's going to be a second year major player, and it's like, now you look at the 7Us and you're like, oh my God, they're teeny,
Right.
But the kids think this obviously the same thing. And it's so cool to have, if you got obviously good kids, good environment, they all see each other and kind of like, okay, now you got your model,
Right.
It's great stuff. I mean, when it's humming, and it's mostly humming these days, it's just,
The other
great.
thing I'll encourage all parents to do is at Sunrise, we have like guys' night out, girls' night out, where you're just going and, getting a cocktail or seeing a movie.
Yeah.
And it brings the community together.
It does. Yeah.
Movie night too.
Movie night, yeah.
Movie night's great. Yeah. We tried to do bowling this last year. Like it was a fundraiser, but also a night out.
Yeah, sure.
So we did a golf tournament.
Oh, everything should be a fundraiser for the league.
Well,
That's
it should
for sure.
be. Yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to.
Right.
But we did. We had a golf tournament that had thrived and then went away, and then we did try to do a poker night several years back that kind of died on the vine.
Yeah.
So we brought golf back a couple years ago, and we found obviously it was mostly dads, shockingly.
Yeah.
And then there's a dinner afterwards, and some of the moms come back, but most of the dads leave. So it's you kind of get, a small little group. But what we found was so important about it was the camaraderie of it,
Yes.
right? Like, so you get back on the field the next morning, like it was a Friday, I think. So Saturday morning, half the dads are ripped, like hung over to death, And
Are we going to take infield, coach? Just sit on the bench.
Yeah, just sit on the bench. Coach is icing his head.
Damn these
But-
Can
aluminum
you get?
bats.
Can you go to the snack shack and ask him for an iced
Gatorade.
coffee or something?
Yeah,
that's
but we
great.
found that the fundraiser aspect may have been a semi-bust, but the camaraderie was the big part. All these dads had such a good time together.
Oh yeah.
And so last year we tried to do, we didn't actually end up doing golf, but we did bowling, or we tried to do bowling, and it was a pain. But that camaraderie that you're talking about for adults is vital too.
Oh my God.
Like 100%.
Your friends are related to what your kids are doing at this age.
Yeah.
When your kids are school age, let's say kindergarten through high school, your friends are going to be related to what your kids do. Here we are, right? Like
More than half the people I talk to on a regular basis has to do with either school
or baseball or some
or
connection
Yeah.
of a sport or an activity that a kid is doing, and that is life.
Yeah.
For us guys, guys in their 30s, gals in their 30s and up.
You're making lifelong friends too.
Yeah,
You are.
It's very true. Like, and even again in the administrative side, like, not to throw out some names, but like these guys, Joseph Dom, who's like my VP, who's now like a really close buddy of mine,
Yeah.
and Brian Hoover is a really good buddy of mine, and I can replicate that over and over again. And it's guys that like you kind of get, we're all shared interest. Our kids are relatively same age. You start kind of working together, and you realize, wait, these are great people we're working with here,
Right.
And it's.
They got off their butts
Yeah.
and volunteered,
Yeah.
right? And there's something about those folks like
Yeah.
us, like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Speaking of the volunteers, it's amazing. You have your initial team meeting where you introduce yourself to the parents,
Yeah.
and you can kind of tell who's going to help and who isn't.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of scanning out who's
yeah.
listening. Who as soon as you start talking about volunteering, and see the ones that start going.
Yeah, open out their phone.
Yeah.
Like-
I used to. They have a rule now at Sunrise. You have to be on the field to do evaluations. But I used to tell Tim this. I used to actually put the notes away and just go in the stands
Okay.
to see the parents,
Oh yeah.
hear what the parents are saying, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because you're drafting. Remember this, guys and gals. You're drafting the family, not just the
100%.
kid.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, our AA team. We had a kid that was really good, but the father was a little intense.
a little.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I sort of stepped back.
And then don't do what Tim did. Don't let it discourage you. Because eventually he got back.
Wait. I wasn't discouraged. Am I doing this, the right way?
Oh, you were saying you
anymore?
step back and question yourself.
Well, yeah, it was kind of like,
gotcha.
am I trying to keep the parents happy or where's, I just started to get frayed a little
I
bit.
think
yeah,
I think that season you handled it well.
Yeah, so I took a season off,
Helps sometimes.
It does. I mean, and again, I think then, my argument to you, Tim, is like you're doing it right? You start self-analyzing, and you don't want to go too far, but at the same time, you start thinking, okay, what's going on here, right? Like, is the parent, I'll use the word again, a shitbag, or am I doing something wrong? So,
and it's, you can't please everybody, especially the parents, because you're there to do your, job essentially is to manage this team. And if personally, I started letting the parents get to me a little bit. So that's when I took the time off.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's tough. I mean, think about that. No volunteer should ever take time off because of parents.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's what it was. And even the last year I was at Toll was just, we had a lot of things going on, and it just I didn't feel like I did a good job at all.
Well, you had a tough situation there.
Yeah, and then Spencer's mom was dealing with the second time breast cancer the whole season.
Yeah.
And
by the way, if you have a kid this during October, try to get them to wear pink armbands or socks. We do it for our club team, just in support of Breast Cancer Month, Awareness Month.
Nice plug there, nice.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. My sister sent me a picture of my nephew playing soccer today with his pink socks on up in Portland.
Yeah, our guys are all in pink over the weekend. It looked great.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, they all turned out too. It's good.
Yeah, it's a good reminder. Again, there's life to more than baseball, or more to life than baseball.
There is. So we'll I think we'll wrap up here, and Chris, let you get back to your life.
Sure, I appreciate it.
I mean, look.
What little I have left of it.
Realistically, we can talk baseball and youth sports all day.
Oh yeah.
So plan on coming back 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me. Seriously, thank you. I mean, it's fun. Like I've never done anything like this before, so it's fun to sit down, talk baseball, and
I mean, look, we're gonna have a lot of repeat guests, but at least like the beginning or end of a season.
Yeah.
Want to find out how your season went, and this will all be available on Third to First podcast, on Instagram, and on our website.
Excellent.
Thanks for just giving me a sequence I need to edit out. I'm just kidding.
See, you also can work with friends of ours. Work with friends that are jerks. No, Tim and I go way back, and we always have fun with it. So
that's awesome.
Thanks for being with us, Chris. We
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
Closing message to maybe
parents.
some parents that have a 4-year-old that they're thinking about Little League or Pony League. I don't know if they start at 4, but
yeah, they do.
They do.
Yeah.
It just.
Yeah, I mean,
what would you say to encourage them to come?
I think I've gotten more philosophical about it all. Right, like remember your kids are 4. Remember they're 5. Remember they're 12. They're gonna grow. They're gonna develop. They're gonna make mistakes. Hopefully they learn from those mistakes, and I think that's a big part of what parents need to realize with baseball. Right, like again, it's a mistake-driven game. Guide them, help them. Get them the support they need, not only at home but on the field. Right, like failure is never final. So ever. So
and it's I've been around. I've been a baseball guy since I was like 2 or 3 years old. First thing I listened to the radio was Vince Scully.
Oh yeah,
watching the '74 Dodgers lose in the World Series. That's my earliest memory of baseball, and it stuck with me the whole time. I never thought I would be on a field until Spencer wanted to play.
Yeah.
And all the things, all the failures, all the ups and downs, everything about the kid being in these team sports is totally worth it. It's 100% worth it if you're there with them going through the whole thing.
So
like you're just saying,
you're going to have 2 types of parents, right? The ones that played, and then if you're like me, I played football, right? I didn't play baseball, but it was like a whole new hobby for me.
Yeah.
Right. I couldn't get enough of it. So we encourage you, the 3 of us, get out there, volunteer, reach out to your local league.
100%.
Reach out to one of us. Information will be available on our website, and we can guide you.
All right. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah, thank you.
Visit us at thirdtofirst.com and on our Instagram, thirdtofirst_podcast.
And Thousand Oaks Little League, is that the website?
I'm pretty sure it's TOLittleLeague.com.
We'll post it for you.
I have it right here.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
TOLittleLeague.com.
I should know that, though. I really should.
If you live in the area, see you out there.